Hello and welcome everyone. We are going to get started here in just a minute because we have a packed agenda for you here today. But as you come in on the right-hand side of Attendee Hub, you will see all of the different options for engagement today. Please join us in the chat as we discuss the content throughout today's webinar. And then click over into the Q&A panel. We will have some time today at the end of our webinar to answer some of your questions live. So please put them in there and not into chat. And as questions come in, please upvote the ones that you want to hear answered first. I'm so excited to be here today in partnership with FICP, the Financial and Insurance Conference Professionals, as we bring together industry leaders to discuss working smarter, not harder, to navigate the changing landscape of the financial and insurance industries and the impact that this is having on your meetings and events program. First, I'd like to introduce our speakers here today. First, I'm going to introduce Elise. Elise, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Stacy. I am Elise Dawson. I work for Invesco, which is a financial management company. We are headquartered here in Atlanta, where I am residing. It's actually pretty gloomy today, but sunny Atlanta. I oversee our in-office event spaces for our marquee offices. So Atlanta, Houston, New York, and Chicago. And when I'm not overseeing events, I actually am planning events here and there as well. So I spend a lot of time in front of the computer and also getting my steps in.
Thanks, Elise. Next up, we have Lisa.
Thank you, Stacy. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Biney, and I manage attendee management and engagement for MetLife's global event operations. I've been working in event technology since 2004 and have seen the industry change dramatically over that time. As you can imagine, I've built homegrown event management tools on my own and later worked with programmers when we needed to upscale. Eventually, we began using out-of-the-box technology to manage our event data and financials. Through this, I've learned about all types of data that surrounds events and how those pieces of data connect with each other. I specialize in outside-of-the-box thinking. As you can see, I'm an artist, not a technologist at heart, so my default is to creative problem solving. And I believe wholeheartedly in having good mentors that listening and watching is the best way to learn. My favorite prompt from leadership is, can we find a better way?
Thanks, Lisa. And I know we're going to hear a lot more about all of your creative ideas later on in today's webinar. And my name is Stacy Shepard. I lead our industry solutions marketing team here at Cvent, focused on our financial and insurance customers and the unique ways that you're leveraging the Cvent solutions for your meetings and events program. Really excited to be here today and dive into our session. All right, so before we dive in, I wanted to actually do a quick poll with everyone here today. So if you click over on the right-hand side of Attendee Hub, click into polls, you'll see that we've got a question for you there that I'd like to find out who we have here with us today. So I want to know what the primary type of technology is that you're using to manage your events program. Is it a homegrown system that your organization has built? Is it an event management platform such as Cvent? Are you still mainly managing events through manual processes like Excel spreadsheets and the dreaded Post-it notes? Or is it a combination of these tools? Looks like we've got a lot of quick folks on the line here today that have already decided on their answer here. And we're seeing that, great, the majority here are leveraging an event management platform. And as expected, there's a little bit of a combination of multiple sources. All right, I think we've got a lot in common with what we're going to hear today. So for today's discussion, we've got Elise and Lisa here to share their stories, but I also wanted to share a little bit of what's really happening in the industry on the Cvent side. So of course at Cvent, we're privy to a lot of data and information and really feel the changes and influx that the industry feels in a direct way. So I want to share a little bit around those factors that are driving impactful events today. Next, we're going to hear real stories of next generation event programs. So we'll hear from Elise directly about Invesco and how they are approaching their events program and event tech. And then next, we'll hear from Lisa at MetLife on the same. And the common themes that we're going to hear a lot about today are visibility, control, savings, the importance of all three of those in today's landscape. And at the end of all of that, using data to deliver results, right? How are we taking this data, in our event tech systems, getting it to the right stakeholders internally, but also being able to interpret and manage that information upwards. So I want to share a little bit on the industry side about what we are seeing. And I love this quote here from our friends at Forrester. But Conrad, who's extremely insightful, said that, if we think our 2019 efforts and 2019 playbook for meetings and events will deliver the same results in 2023, you're probably mistaken. And I know that all of us that are in the financial and insurance industries are feeling this more than ever. We've seen a lot of turbulence this year, constant headlines. And this means that there's a lot of questions for us around, are we still approaching our programs in the right way? Do we need to take a different approach based on what we are feeling and seeing? And with that, I'd like to share a few of the key event trends that we've seen specifically in the financial services and insurance industry as it directly relates to events, because these are common themes that you're going to hear from both Elise and Lisa throughout today's webinar. The first that we've been seeing is this clear commitment to sustainable events. It's become more pressing both at an organizational level down to your events program that sustainability needs to be top of mind as you approach your meetings and events program. Everything from the impact on site at your venue, food and bev selections, to the way that you're recycling, but also how we are looking at event design and leveraging technology to assign value and track those efforts as well. And next, we're seeing a more connected event program. We've learned a lot from the past few years of incorporating digital technology and digital means into our events program. So even as we return in person and we're back to face-to-face, we're still seeing these impacts made. And that's why we're still looking for ways to execute virtual programs or even look into hybrid options so that we don't miss out on that digital audience and the data and the leads that come with that as well. And then the next trend that really couples nicely with that is that our in-person events are really embracing those digital elements. We can't look to our in-person events the same way we did in 2019. We need to learn from what we've been executing over the past few years and incorporate those elements into our events. We've also seen this trend really extending the life of our events. So before we would have said, the start date and the end date, that's our entire event. But now we can really incorporate these digital elements to do some pre-event activity, get folks networking through virtual communities, and then post-event offering content on demand so we keep that content life cycle a little bit longer. Not surprisingly, we're also seeing a renewed focus on cost savings and efficiencies. And we'll talk a lot about that today of what we're doing to really track those efforts and identify savings through visibility means within our programs. We know that budgets are likely flat or potentially even lower than we've been working with before. So we've got to get creative around how we can execute events at the same high level, but also make sure that we're managing costs and budgets appropriately. We're also going to dive deep into the importance of leveraging your event data and really activating those insights based on all of these data points that you're collecting through your complex event programs. This strategic use of event data is really able to showcase the impact of your events program to those stakeholders who care most about that. And we'll talk about some technologies that are helping you get that information to the right places. And then the last trend that we're seeing is this idea of technology consolidation. Whereas a lot of point solutions may have been adopted when you're looking for digital capabilities over the past few years, that now we're looking to consolidate those technologies to deliver a better user experience to both our employees, investors, other attendees, and customers as a way to make your events even more engaging. All right, so now I'm going to pass things over to Elise to tell us about Invesco and their events program there. Elise?
So I've been at Invesco for going on 13 years, and I've definitely seen that progression that you mentioned on the previous slides. We have grown. I think when I started with the organization, we were somewhere around 5,000 employees, and we are now at over 8,000 employees. We are headquartered here in Atlanta. We actually just had our grand opening event this past Saturday where we were able to welcome all of our employees and their families to see our new space. And it's a community, right? And with that comes meetings, events, and, those being top of mind for me, we executed over 200 events last year, both offsite and within our facilities here in North America. But when we look at what those events entail, we have a variety. So here are some of the kind of the bigger buckets here on the slide on the right. We have board meetings, we have employee events, road shows, those due diligence, trade shows, you name it, we do it. But when you think about all of those events, how do you make sure that the wires don't get crossed, that people know what they need to know, people are in the right place? And it really boils down to what technology are you using to be efficient and effective. So kind of going into that, on the next slide, you'll see these are kind of the core things within our event programs and what my goals are. One of the first things is definitely engaging the attendees and the employees. Whenever you go anywhere, you want to make sure that you are captivating your audience. You want to make sure that the individuals at the other end of that, experience are having the best experience that they can. And that definitely comes with starting off on the right foot, leading with a great impression. And that starts not just when they walk through the doors of your venue or, that first impression at your event. It's how are they communicated to before they even got there? So what are the communications looking like? Telling them about the event and the information that they're getting, all the way to that post-event survey of, did you like it? Did you not like it? Will you come back? And then gaining visibility into all those requests. So for me, I oversee 4 cities, and those cities are doing events every single day, upwards of 20 events a day per location. So being able to see and know what is happening in those cities is crucial. At any given moment, my director will come to me and say that, what do we have coming up? And I sometimes I look at her and like, which, you got to tell me which city, where are we right now? But having that information at my fingertips is crucial, and being able to speak to that is crucial. And having the visibility is all about the information that you put in. It's all about the data that you're collecting. So having that be housed in one location is vital for me in my day-to-day operations.
But Elise, I know we want to talk about some factors that are really driving the direction of your event program.
Perfect. So factors, and Stacey, you actually mentioned this in the slides prior to budget. Budgets are flat, as we know. Budgets are lower, and things cost more. So I go to the grocery store, I'm paying $10 a carton for eggs. Well, as you can think, the caterers are probably going to charge me 20, because that's just how the domino effect goes. So we have to work with less resources. And when you have a limited budget, you get creative. You start to really think about those in-house solutions. So kind of going back to that poll where some people are using some homegrown, some people are still using Post-its. I still use Post-its. Don't ask me, they're everywhere. I don't even understand how I can undo the puzzle at this point. But then also event technology. So it's really kind of finding the great balance between the stakeholders, the best way that they receive information, the metrics that you're getting out of these different methods that you're using, and then ultimately, price sometimes as well. Can we afford to onboard another technology platform? And then what are we getting from the technology platform? Is it going to improve our processes? Is it going to save us money down the line? Is it going to get us more exposure to new clients, get us in front of a different audience? All of those things are really what kind of meld into making that decision about what is the technology that we want to bring into the fold. And for me personally, visibility is one of the big things, and budget. My company is definitely very, we want to make sure we're leveraging the technology that we have in-house and making sure that we've really exhausted that before we bring in any outside technology.
Elise, I know we wanted to talk about visibility and what visibility means to your team. Can you share some more around that?
Yeah. So kind of going back to that previous point, it's access to information. Visibility is essentially the access to the information that you're collecting. And it's like if you were to log into your bank account and you couldn't see your balance, you would be like, what's happening? You have to have access to the information that you're putting in, and having that visibility helps with making those important decisions. So when I'm projecting what the fall will look like, and if it's going to be super busy, and if I need more staff, I'm going to look at, well, how many events do I have coming up? What tier are those events? How many people does it take to execute that event? How many people do I have versus contractors versus full-time staff? So having the visibility into all of the components of the meeting is super crucial. And another part of that is the information that you put into the system. So making sure that the data that you're collecting is pretty clean and, people are updating it, because those are the things that will drive ultimately your the decisions that you make down the line. And then kind of roll into the control. One of the big things that I love is data visualization. I might not be the best with Power BI or very techie, but being able to see all of the information in different ways is really important to the shareholders that I work with, because they can then in turn see it in something that's easily digestible for them. So a pie chart, or maybe we're looking at a timeline or a roadmap, but that data visualization tells the story ultimately of, this is where we are, this is where we're looking to be, these are the hurdles that we may come across along the way, but it's in a snapshot in a dashboard that people can see, and they can take what information that they need and manipulate it, or use it in another form. So telling that story and having that control over what you're going to see is super crucial, which kind of dovetails into, at the end of the day, it's all about metrics. Benchmarking, in comparison to our competitors, in comparison to ourselves, year over year, where are we? Are we right on par with the number of events, or are we doing more? Are we over with our spend? Just all of those different components to a meeting and all the data that we put in, looking at those metrics to help us make better decisions as we continue to plan and iterate for the next year, for the next program, even for the next week. Sometimes we look at the calendar and we're like, last week was brutal. What happened? I feel like I got ran over. What were the factors that were at play in that? And we can take that and then do something different for the following week. So one of the things I always think about with technology is that it's something new always coming out, and you want to stay on top of the new thing, but so is data. There's always a change in the information that you're getting. So making sure that you take the time to look at those metrics that you're collecting and figuring out, how will I change? How will I adjust as we begin to do something different or look at something new? And that is how we continue to evolve. And I'll go into how we achieve this. So I spoke a lot about collecting that information and, making sure you're collecting the right information. One of the best ways, aside from my Post-it notes, because I still use those, is the meeting request form. And the reason that we use it so heavily is because it really is a one-stop shop. It is an area, it is that entry form, right? The cost of entry, to put all of that information in one place, and then knowing that you can manipulate it, you can pull something out, you can, dig deeper in all these different areas. And you can also use it as a means to follow up. So now we've gotten an inquiry and we know that Stacy wants to host a meeting. Now we know how to follow back up with her, and we're not following back up with her blindly. We know the basics of her meeting. So now the experience that Stacy's getting is customized to what she's looking to do. So it's better preparing us to engage and interact with our stakeholders on more than one level. And then from there, we take all of those meeting request forms, and there's a report. There's a report for everything, right? So figuring out what report are we running today? One of the things is I like to get a daily calendar of all the things that are happening in globally, as well as kind of here in my market, the North America market, and just figuring out, this is what I have on the docket. These are the VIP meetings, right? These are the ones that I need to flag and make sure that my director is aware of, and that we need to have additional eyes on. But to the point that we don't want to micromanage. We know, we trust our teams. We know that they're going to execute, but being able to just see it without having to pester someone, right? And say, hey, could you tell me about this meeting? Or I see that it's coming up. I already know. I'm looking at the report. And which kind of tells into the access portals part. Like I said, I've been doing events with Invesco for about 13 years. So I have kind of graduated out of the sending reports kind of task, but I know one of the things that was like my to-do every time I had a meeting was to send the attendee report to my stakeholder every day. And it was back when you needed to download it, save it as Excel, and that was it. And sometimes it was actually just typing the names in because they may have called a number. So the access portal changed the game. It is, you have it on your own time. You don't need me. You can go and look at it whenever you want to, but and though it's convenient for me, it's much more convenient for the stakeholder, because now they have access to that information and they can do and share with their teams, their sales teams. Maybe the attendee number isn't where we need it to be. Maybe we need to get more invites out there, or maybe we are looking like we're going to be over budget. So now people have the ability to control and make adjustments on their own and not have to rely on me, because maybe I am stuck on a call or whatever it is. But I think when people have access to the information sooner, they are allowed more autonomy in how they want to take that information and what they want to do with it. And Access Portal has definitely saved my inbox for sure, because they used to email me. So as I look ahead, like I said, I love tech. I am always kind of looking at the different forums and the different boards about what's kind of on the horizon. But the biggest thing when I think about my day-to-day and how I continue to do business is really being able to see what I have and what's happening at my fingertips, and having that accessibility and identifying those important benchmarks that really are crucial for what my senior leaders want to see. And it definitely is having to do with budget, and it's having to do with kind of the experience overall and the client experience. So being able to identify what those areas are and share that information out with them in a timely manner, but also in a way that is easily digested by them. And then that global view, visibility, it's almost like real estate, right? Location, location, location. For me, it's visibility, visibility, visibility. What can I see, and do I have the proper time to react or prepare or adjust? And I think having the information be in one system is going to be key to making sure that I can do that. And then iterating year over year. So taking those lessons that you learn and figuring out, how do we want to improve upon this? Is there technology that can make this process easier? I know the rave right now is what is AI, right? So are we going to be able to use AI to make things easier for us, or to make us more efficient? And I don't know the answer to that. I would have to ask, IT, but I think just taking the time to really look at what you're doing. Does it make sense? Is this the right step for my team? Is this the right step for us? And then taking that progression and changing and improving year over year.
One thing that really stuck out to me was this concept of continuous improvement. And I think that's something that all of us really have at the top of our minds. And we want to continue to plan in that manner, but we get so caught up with the day-to-day and what's next in the near future that looking back on how much we've accomplished is something we don't do enough. Right. And I think with that, I have a question for you, but we talked a lot about attendee feedback and this engagement data. How do you incorporate that feedback, that data, into your overall strategy to continuously improve your event program holistically?
Yeah. So share it, right? You don't want to contain it. When you get the feedback, and be it the attendees of your program, be it maybe the client that you work with, you want to make sure you're sharing this information, but share it in a way that makes sense. So don't just blanketly, flip an email to someone. Try to aggregate it, right? And you're going to put it into buckets of, this is solely about the venue, or maybe this is about the attendee experience. Maybe this is about the communication process, and put it in those respective buckets wherever they are, and share it with the proper people that can make the change happen. So oftentimes I'll get feedback and it's like, well, this isn't technically my area, but I do think IT should have this information. I do think that they should figure out or hear what the experience is for others. And that's how I work with my colleagues to help us improve time after time. Because I want to make sure the information is concise enough that they can actually action upon it versus it being too broad. So really pulling out whatever those common themes are and figuring out, sometimes I love to troubleshoot. Sometimes I kind of insert myself a little bit into those conversations, but helping them creative problem solve for whatever it is. And if it applies to my particular program, how are we going to do it differently the following year?
I love that. Be specific, right? No detail too small. Thanks so much, Elise. And we will see you in just a few minutes, but I want to give some time to Lisa and let Lisa share some of the insights around the MetLife program. Lisa?
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Elise. Really just ditto everything Elise said, and I'm just gonna leave. I'm just kidding. MetLife is a leading provider in insurance, annuities, and employee benefits. With over 150 years in the marketplace, MetLife does business with 96 of the Fortune 100 companies. We have 45,000 plus employees in over 40 global markets. And our global planning community manages over 400 plus events with an average spend of around 37 million. We've had a strategic meetings management program in place since 2011, and we use the data collected from that for bulk buy negotiations and decision-making across the globe. We see a range of event types from high-level incentive conferences to small business dinners and everything in between. Our attendees are primarily internal associates, but we also do events for brokers and customers. Our program goals vary based on event, but at the end of our day, our goal is to deliver best in service for our businesses and for our customers. We do this by putting our customer, the attendee, at the center of everything we do. Our focus is on improving their experience from initial impression, the invitation, to the post-event survey. We maintain a what's next approach, constantly thinking ahead, looking for new technology, and looking for ways to streamline and improve those processes, and in turn, improve our attendees' experience. This is done mainly by maintaining the forward-thinking approach and ensuring our meeting technology differentiates us. Lastly, and I say this a lot, but we listen to our attendees. Through feedback, we can gather what they really want in an event and find ways to make that possible. We can listen in to what their holdups were and find ways to improve that the next time. This year, we are really focusing on sustainability as a company and subsequently for our internal team at our events. We've implemented some things already that have gone over really well. At an event earlier this year, we had reusable tumblers as a giveaway, and instead of putting out single-use plastic water bottles, we put out water coolers that attendees could refill their bottles at. We also asked that hotels not use single-use plastic items at our events and instead use aluminum or boxed beverages. And we've long done away with paper agendas and other items like that because of the app, and we have that all included in there. But this year, we're also moving over to biodegradable name badges and paper registration packets or cardboard registration packets instead of the plastic. And lastly, we like to communicate our efforts on those sustainability initiatives to the attendees just to let them know what we're doing to help and how we're helping MetLife meet its sustainability goals. And in turn, that helps them be part of the solution and they can more actively participate. In the future, I'd love to find some ways to use tech to track or gamify these actions to increase participation. There's already apps out there that track water consumption or measure your carbon footprint, but we're still looking on ways to incorporate that into the event experience. On the topic of work smarter, not harder, last week we completed an annual incentive for our group sales where we did just that. The first image that's going to come up here shows an iPoster at our registration desk, which played on a loop showing all of the app features. And with this, we didn't need to print how-to sheets or even provide tech help really to those using the app. Of course, people were there, we were there in case they needed help, but we weren't needed. So no news is good news, so it must have worked. Another way to work smarter and cheaper is to employ software you already have in place to fulfill an unlikely purpose. In this case, we use the On Arrival check-in app to track the gifts that people were selecting at a gifting kiosk. My associate built a session with a checkout question containing each gift option, and we simply checked them out after they selected what they wanted. It went over really well, super smooth. This allowed us to know who had gotten their gift already and who hadn't, and we can also look at what was most popular or least popular. Oh, looking ahead, sorry, I forgot that slide. Looking ahead, we continue to implement and track key sustainability initiatives across the event experience. Additionally, over the next year, we'd like to pinpoint what data is most relevant to measuring ROI for our events. And as I said earlier, we've collected data for many years, but narrowing down on the data points that best measure ROI is top of our mind this year. Lastly, we'd like to take these learnings and data points and turn them into a new ROI framework.
Thank you, Lisa. Great insights there. And now I'm going to dig a little bit deeper because I know that you shared how much you pride yourself on outside the box thinking, creative thinking. While we have this group here with us today, can you share any recent examples of thinking outside the box in regards to working with a limited budget?
We've been doing that for years because we have flat budgets, right? We're in the financial and insurance space. So we continue to do things like the things I mentioned, using existing tech stack items to fulfill needs. And oftentimes, your clients come to you and they say, we found this new technology to do X. But if you dig in and you look at what's on your tech stack already, there's probably something in place that you can already use to fulfill that need. So a lot of times, again, it's just listening to what it is they're asking for, and dig a little deeper and find out what the end goal is that they want to accomplish. And you probably have something in place that can make that happen for them.
So if I can bring Elise back here and we can get all three of us on camera. There we go. All right, that's a start. I have a few questions for the group after we just shared so many great insights around working smarter, not harder, leveraging what we've got to be more creative with flat budgets. And I'm hoping that we've got some questions coming in from our attendees as well. But I think something that's very important that we keep talking about is prioritizing the right technology solutions to invest in when working with a limited budget. I'm going to pass this to Elise first, but do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share around best practices or strategy of how you prioritize technology when you are working with a limited budget?
Yeah, and I'll actually kind of Lisa's answer is look internally. What do you already have access to within your organization? And then also setting up time with, I guess, the powers that be or the individuals that manage that to explain what you're looking to do. So I know my internal IT team, when they see me coming and I have that look, like they know the look, they just kind of like walk the other way because I'm brainstorming something in my head and I want to run it past them. And can it do this? Can the system do this? Can it do that? So don't be afraid to just have that. It doesn't have to be clear, just word vomit that conversation to them of like, this is what I'm looking to do. Do we have something that can accomplish that? And then take that same conversation and look at the third party event technology that you have and ask them the same thing. Do you have a solution within your existing platform that can accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish here? And 9 times out of 10, to Lisa's point, they do. It might be repurposing something that you have. So for me, I use a meeting request form. And now this year, I'm really trying to look at ESG and sustainability. Well, I don't need to go out and get an ESG platform that might not even exist, or I'm going to spend all of my time trying to find the platform, right? Versus maybe I just add some questions to my meeting request form that'll allow me to track that. So really just looking internally, but having the conversation of that brainstorming conversation of this is the pie in the sky and how can you help me get here?
It's really where custom fields come in handy, right?
Right.
Lisa, any additional thoughts on your end on the MetLife side?
I mean, and it all depends on timing, right? So if we're in a pandemic, then virtual tech's going to win, as far as like prioritizing where we're going to put our efforts, right? But if that's not the case, then our goal is just to increase, you want to increase the attendees' experience. So anything that's going to do that, the priority is going to fall there.
Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about the decision-making process when you're choosing event tech? I know that both of you have a lot of experience with a lot of different technology, and you've been through that process of evaluating, going through the RFP process, and really looking to all the different factors that have gone into decision-making when you're looking and choosing a new technology. What can you share to the rest of us around your decision-making process and maybe some learnings of what you've learned along the way? Lisa, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Beyond what we've already said so far, I think that in the decision-making process, the first question I always ask people is why? Why do you want that? And what is the ultimate goal? Because, like I said earlier, we might already have something in place, but also you might find out that that there's a different route altogether. And then once you've determined, hey, there is a software out there that we want, you can save yourself a lot of time and heartache if you just do some digging and ask a lot of questions to the vendors themselves, or to people who've used it and have went through the process already, because you might determine, hey, this is going to be a risk for my company and it's never going to fly and it's not even worth my time.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that. And this is decision-making regardless. Have the individuals that are responsible for completing whatever that task be a part of the process. So I've done countless demos, and some demos, I am the doer. I am the person that's going to be engaging and using this platform the most. So I have the questions that are imperative to know the answer to. I want to know, do I really need to know how to code to use the system, or maybe I don't? But making sure the individual that will be in that system the most is a part of that process, because they will help and they will ask the right questions to get you to a decision or get you to kind of the solution quicker. And also bring and bubble up those things that are going to be problems down the line that, as someone that is not so engaged or using the system frequently, it might not be top of mind for you. So.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful as well. Thinking about problems potentially down the line, right? We've gone through the process so many times where you select a technology, implement it, and then learn as your program evolves or as your needs change that potentially there are complications down the line. To that end, Elise, what are some common mistakes that an organization might make when implementing technology, and how do you think they can be avoided or could be?
I feel like we are in a hurry up wait culture. So one of the things is that we need it right now. We need whatever it is right this moment. So we don't have the proper timeline to be thorough with even the RFP process, the implementation process, the onboarding process, all of those steps. Because like I said, when you work in a system day in and day out, the kinks that you will experience, 6 months down the line, it's just not the same thing that you would get week 2. There's going to be different situations that come up and develop. People are going to be using a system in different ways. For me, I work a certain way. So I know that I'm going to log onto my computer. I'm going to open up my Outlook. I'm going to do this. I do the same steps every time. Someone else does it totally different. And when you get all of these players into whatever the system is, that's when those things that you never could have imagined, all those quirks and all the things that you never thought could happen, no one ever planned for it, that's when they happen. So giving yourself time in that discovery phase to really try to stress test it as much as you can. And I think sometimes we're just kind of rushing because it's an event. We're bringing this technology on because we have an event coming up, and the event sets the timeline. It sets the deadline for when things have to happen, versus are we being really thoughtful about how we're onboarding this? So that would be my suggestion.
Lisa, any thoughts from your side around mistakes that can be avoided?
Yeah, I think people sometimes don't talk to enough people. Always ask for references, and a lot of them, especially ask for references that the vendor didn't give you, and ask all the hard questions, because you might save yourself a lot of heartache and sweat if you talk to all these people and determine, this isn't the right fit for me. They ran into this wall, and that's a wall I'd run into, because that's how I'm going to use it. And so talk to a lot of people. And then also, just no matter how much you plan ahead, there's going to be issues. And so just know that, just like when you're going in to plan an event, something's going to happen, plan for the worst and hope for the best. That's what you do with implementations as well. Something's going to happen, something's going to come up, and you just have to push forward. Implementations are hard, especially in the financial and insurance space. We have lengthy and arduous IT risk assessments and processes to get through. And so you just need to power through.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for those insights. I know before we get into some of our questions from our attendees on today's webinar, I wanted to share some key takeaways around today's discussion. I know that Elise and Lisa shared so many great nuggets. I hope you were jotting that down or feel free to share this recording with your colleagues as well. But as we look to what are today's key takeaways around working smarter, not harder, but also keeping that North Star of creating impactful events, specifically in the financial and insurance space, while managing your budget, there's really four key things that we want to highlight. The first is replacing those manual processes. I think that's step one when you're talking about working smarter, not harder, is how can I get my team to move faster, to make those decisions, to execute and really deliver what's needed day to day. And alongside that, it's increasing efficiency. We're not necessarily adding new team members at this time for additional support. So we've got to be more efficient in how we're spending our time and the tasks that our team and ourselves are doing. And then just reducing that time, because that time savings is also money savings. We talked a lot around this commitment to sustainable events, and that's going to continue. And that really does tie nicely to that impactful events theme, that the more conscious and aware we are of how we can be more sustainable and incorporate those practices into our events, the more impactful our event program becomes. And then that fourth theme of really continuously improving the attendee experience, looking to our survey feedback, looking to our engagement data, what are attendees interacting with the most, where do their preferences lie, and being able to iterate on that and improve your event cycle really does tie back to how we can make those events even more impactful. All right, so now I want to toss things back to our audience and bring our speakers back up here and see if we can get some live Q&A going. We're back. Perfect. And I see we've got one question that came in here, and I really do like this question. So I'm curious where this is going to go to Lisa and Elise. But we did have someone ask, what is a capability that Cvent does not have today that you wish it does? And let's see if we can tie this directly back to your work in the financial space. Lisa, any thoughts on a feature that you'd love Cvent to have?
Sure. One that I thought about the other day was we were talking about augmented reality and having something like that in the app, or an integration capability within the app to be able to have navigation using that through your phone. I think that would be really cool. And, just bump it up a level of, for your attendees. But the other one, more down to earth example, I suppose, would be just having more visibility into, I think, what's coming up next. I think we all want to see more of what's coming up next, and to be able to have more pull or say into what's really not working for us as a customer. And I think that's something we'd really like to see.
Yeah. I will send this back to our product team. So any thoughts you have, I'm always happy to pester that team. And it looks like we've got Elise, maybe not. Okay, so we had one more question come in here. And I like this one a lot because it's around communication internally. We talked a lot about results and insights, all the data, the access portals, and reports. But Lisa, how are you communicating that internally? Do you have any best practices for communication in terms of results and insights to stakeholders within your organization?
Sure. With the access portal, we do use that for our event reports, for them to be able to access information on their own. But we also do employ Power BI for a dashboard and just looking at data across the board for all the MRFs coming in. But I think the biggest thing is just really, like I said earlier, understanding that data and the data points that we have available, and making sure the most important ones are being delivered on those reports that go up to the C-suite, and really making sure they're accurate.
Yes, accuracy matters when you're sending it up to the C-suite. Elise, any thoughts on your side around how you're handling that communication internally? We might not have audio for Elise right now. Okay, so we will pause on that one, but I've got another question here. So Lisa, you just talked about AR and augmented reality too. So I think this one is right up your alley. But what do you think are some emerging event tech trends that you see having a big impact on the industry in the coming years?
I think integrations, I think the ability, and not just like an API, but I think having integrations that are solid and we know how they're going to work when they come in, and having it's almost like a catalog of options available, because there's so much coming out. And I think that in the past, a lot of times, a lot of large companies will buy up these, capabilities and try to, incorporate them. But I think what's better is just to let them do what they're good at and have an integration in place. And it also allows you to customize what you need for your company, your business better.
Yeah. I guess alongside that side with emerging event tech trends, how do we feel about the recent boom of AI? Are there any discussions around incorporating that into your day-to-day?
I mean, there's a lot of discussions. I mean, whether it's in marketing or in the event space, but because we're in the financial and insurance space, it's not like a reality because, we can barely, get on to today without issue because everything's blocked. So maybe one day there'll be a safe AI chat GPT sort of feature that we can use, but it's really cool. And I think it's great for ideation. I think it's great for content and just coming up with like a starting point. I think humans will always need to be involved in order to check and cross check these things and make sure that we're not doing something weird because AI told us to. But
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, and I think there is a future in it, and it just needs to be secured a bit more to make it into our space.
Sure. All right, looks like we had one more question come in. Yeah, that's a stay tuned question, right? I think even us here at CVent, we think along the same lines that content is a big opportunity for a tool like ChatGPT or any of those AI technologies to take maybe the ideas that you have around your sessions or even previous events that you've been building, and then help pre-populate some suggested titles or suggested descriptions to really just get to that place a little bit quicker. With human intervention, you definitely want to review what's being suggested, but I think it could be an interesting opportunity for us when we talk about content.
Sure.
All right, so we've got one question additional here, and this just came in from our attendee base. So as a part of a foundation with very limited budgets, okay, potentially even more limited than you both, do you feel you are spending more by utilizing applications or software? Do you think it's worth it? And then additionally, for virtual auctions, they often take a percentage away from your profits, which pulls from your overall profit for your event. How do you manage that, or do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah.
Elise, I don't do any.
Can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first part of that question. So is the technology worth it? Sometimes, and then I know this is such a hard thing to sell to your stakeholders, but your time, how much time are you spending doing whatever this process that is manual? And if we want to take it to dollars and cents, is it overtime that you're having to stay, or what are you being taken away from so that you have to do this manual process? And I think it's somewhat of a misconception that all technology is expensive. I think there are definitely solutions out there that are feasible that can provide that added benefit and, that efficiency that you're looking for. So I would, definitely let them know that at the end of the day, the things that I'm having to do that I'm being pulled away from are not allowing me to have that ideation, to Lisa's point, that are not allowing me to think big picture, think long term, because I am so concentrated. I spend a lot of time concentrating on the details and the manual things. So I definitely think it's worth it. I think, just being able to sell it is going to be the key, right? To sell whomever it is that has the budget for the technology, and then finding something that you don't have to get a platform that does everything. Get a platform that is going to accomplish what you're trying to solve. To Lisa's previous point, what are we solving for? Because then that singular platform might be less expensive. And as they grow and they add things to their technology stack or their offerings, then you grow with them, and then you can figure out if you want to have that other part be a part of it. The second part of the question with the auction and taking a percentage and it pulls away from the profits, we actually just did an auction, and we are facing this exact same thing. the sad part is with the auction, you're at the mercy of what people bid. So it's not like you can upcharge it to get that bottom line that you are looking for. But maybe offering more things or getting things donated will help with offsetting some of that. So if maybe it's a weekend stay at a hotel and it's given to you, you didn't actually have to pay for it. So that could be something that you could just kind of recoup whatever that percentage is wholly without having to worry about, making less than what you anticipated.
Love that. Lisa, any thoughts on your side?
No, I'm going to ditto what Elise said. We don't do auctions, so I have nothing to say on that, but yeah.
Great question. And it looks like we just got a comment from Serena, just for Lisa. Serena says, hi, Lisa. I'm currently researching with an AR developer studio on integrating AR into digital events, and she successfully used AR for live events and exhibitions. Fantastic. Serena, we'll have to connect you two after today's webinar and keep that discussion.
For sure. I want to check that out.
Yeah.
Me too. That's cool.
All right. So I know we are almost out of time, which I know the three of us could just keep talking forever. But I wanted to wrap things up and just remind everyone that attended today's webinar that CVent Connect is back in Las Vegas this year, July 24th to July 27th, coming up very quickly. But I do want to highlight that this event every year, just really a great opportunity for networking, for learning, for connecting with your peers, specifically in this industry. FICP and CVent will be partnering on another session during Connect. So another opportunity to hear from us as we want to bring you exactly what you're looking to hear during this time. So please join us in Las Vegas. We'd love to meet you there on site. And then I really just want to give another thank you to our partners over at FICP. If you'd like to learn more, you're not potentially a member today, you can join very easily online, ficpnet.com, or feel free to connect with me after today's webinar. I'm happy to get you in touch with their membership team. And then if you'd like to learn more about CVent and our solutions for the financial and insurance industries, you can learn more on our website by contacting me or getting in touch with our team. So thank you again for joining us today. Work smarter, not harder. I hope there were some great takeaways. And thank you again to Lisa and Elise. We really appreciate your expertise. And thank you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day.